and welcome to Story X Story, the podcast by Maya Matter that dives deep into stories across pop culture, plus gives you advice on creating your own. It's episode 215, and I'm your co host, Nigel.
I am Tazziii, content creator and co-host.
And for our behind the story episodes, we like to talk to creative professionals and practitioners across industries to unpack their journey. And today we are going to hear the story behind Tom and C, aka Alamode Games. Welcome to you both. How are you both doing?
Yeah, we're doing all right. So I'm CB. I'm like kind of the artistic side of Alamode. I do like the character design and the story stuff. Like that's kind of my main skill set.
And I'm Tom. I do the programming, but try and contribute creatively
Oh yeah.
whenever there's a window of opportunity.
Yeah, you do contribute
Um,
a lot creatively. It's creativity. I can't even say it creatively.
dipping my toe in.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. All right. Well, yeah, we'll definitely get into like the creative aspect of this and get both your take. We've got the stereotypically creative and the stereotypically non-creative roles, at least I feel in society. And I say that having been a programmer, but yeah, we'll dig into all that. So yeah, thank you for joining. This is the first time on the podcast, although see you've been with us on various Do I Look Like a Gamer live streams. I think we've done a couple. So there's audio and video floating around somewhere. If it's not all up at the moment, it will be. But yeah, first time on the podcast. So thank you both for joining. So listeners, you can subscribe to Story X Story wherever you get your podcast from. And that includes Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can also send us your feedback and questions in a variety of ways. You can send us a voice message on our Spotify for Podcasters page. You can email us, studio77@mymatter.com, or you can throw your thoughts at us on social media. We have a few accounts. We're at MyMatter on Twitter for the time being, at MyMatter TV on Instagram and TikTok, and at mymatter.com on Blue Sky, or at Life of a W Gamer on Instagram and TikTok, at Tazziii on everything else, and that includes tazziii.bsky.social on Blue Sky. Also check out our website. We are still working on a new website for later in the year, but the current holding website gives a good idea of what we do as a brand. The previous website didn't do that, but I mean, if you've heard us talk about it, you might already know everything, but you might also not know all the different things we do as a brand. So check that out, mymatter.com, and join our Studio 77 Discord to be part of the MyMatter community and chat with us there too. So before we find out more about our guests, let's update you with the latest from the MyMatter universe. Hopefully you already know, but if you don't, we have a new manga. So Origins Against All Odds is out and available. And we also have video from the roundtable we did at Japanese Gallery in Kensington, which was Tazziii talking with Janelle McCurdy, Miyuki Panda, and Shazleen Khan about the creative journey, which is kind of influenced by the book, because the book is about Tazzii's creative journey in the Maya Matter universe. So it's all very meta, because the character's about the real person, but in the story. And then we had an event about people pursuing their creative dreams, talking about the story. So it's all, I don't know, it's like a reality meta pretzel, something like that. Anyway, the book is out, so you can read it. Very thankful to Kickstarter backers for making this happen and being very patient. And yeah, you can get your copy at mymatter.com, or upcoming events. I know Thought Bubble for one for sure I'll be at. That's later in the year. We have been at a couple of other events earlier in the year, and the schedule in between does not come to mind. So just, yeah, keep following us online or watching listening to the podcast, and you will find out when you can next get the book. Same goes for the Do I Look Like a Gamer campaign. This is our campaign promoting diversity and inclusion in the video games industry. So it's our yearly initiative, and each time we do it, we have a new snapshot of 40 players and makers showcasing the representation that does exist today, inspiring future generations of diverse talent. So by the time you are listening to this, the photos will be out, actually. So yeah, go check that out. They're on socials, on the website, looklikeagamer.com. The C is in there as well. So check those out. Check out the profiles and the video as well, because we do like video, get to profile each person so you know a little bit more about them. We have come off the back of London Comic Con, so check out the photos and the video from there. But you can also go to the website looklikeagamer.com to see what we've got next. So a bunch of stuff planned for the year, different events and activities. So check that out, be part of the campaign, and yeah, hopefully we'll see you over the year. You can also visit us digitally on Twitch and YouTube for our Studio 77 activities. That's our platform where we have different shows talking to creative professionals, and we also play games for your amusement. So each month we have different shows. The usual ones we have the Studio 77 report. That's me and Tazziii giving updates on the Maya Matter universe and also talking video game stories. So actually like news stories. Casual conversations with comic creators. So I'm speaking to a different comic creator each month about their journey and the craft of making comics. And we get to speak to a wide variety of people from this country, from other countries as well. And Games Night, where we play a different game when the tech allows. I actually didn't get to play. I played like, I don't know, a sum total of like 5 minutes of multiverses. And then the rest was me watching other people playing. Sometimes there are tech issues and yeah, that happens. But most of the time we get to play games. There we go. So yeah, make sure you're following us on Twitch to catch each show. Join us in chat. Love to hear from you. And if you are a young aspiring creative professional or you know one, then check out the Maya Matter Showrunners Work Experience Program. That's us creating opportunities for young people aged 16 and up to work with our team across comic production, events, and content creation. And yeah, we've had a lot on the comic production side, got a lot coming up on the events and content creation side. So it's giving people that opportunity to gain that meaningful work experience in the creative industry. So you can email us at showrunners@mayamatter.com to find out more about that. So that's where we are with the Maya Matter universe. Now let's go behind the story with today's guests.
C and Tom are the husband and wife team, also known as Alamode Games, based in Bournemouth. They have brought their first game to market called Sorry We're Closed, with C focusing on art and Tom handling programming. The game is available on Windows, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation, and Xbox. So for the listeners of the podcast and those who follow Maya Matter, you will know that creativity is very important to us. But what does creativity mean to the both of you?
Well, actually, I think for me it's like a very open thing. Like it's just whenever someone is expressing themselves in a way that's, maybe just slightly unconventional. Maybe that's in a way that's other than, just words.
Yeah, I think you can creatively express yourself with words as well. Really,
Yeah.
any form of personal
Yeah.
expression. It is taking something from your mind and putting it out either to the world or just for yourself or for just a handful of people. It's an expression of yourself to me.
Well, you're actually, I think you're more right because I mean, immediately, yeah, like stories and poetry and songs, they all include words. So yeah, I agree with that. I think in my head, I was thinking more like just kind of plain conversation where you're just sort of plainly saying how you feel. But I guess that doesn't, I don't know, there's not really a plain way of saying how you feel, is there? So yeah, I do agree with that. Yeah, it's just a way of like kind of trying to show what's inside outside, like trying to.
And it might just be your interpretation of something. You might not have to share anything about yourself, like
Mm,
personally, but it could be a creative expression of your understanding of something, I guess.
yeah, it's like a connection, isn't it? It's like a means of connection, and yeah, maybe at its core, it's for me, it's kind of about connection and finding ways to connect with other people.
An expression made with your unique experiences and perspective on life.
It doesn't even have to be other people, because people certainly, I'm sure. I mean, I sing to the cat, and you sing to the. So, yeah. And I think that's like a form of creativity as well, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
We should ask the cat.
Yeah, they might have other opinions. Like,
Yeah, the cat might.
like, no, I've heard this 100 times.
The cat might not appreciate the creativity, but it does not mean that there isn't some there. I don't know. I think that's a a fair enough sort of assessment of it. It's whatever. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's a hard subject. It's a difficult subject to cover.
definitely is. And I feel like that's why it's one of the questions that we ask right at the beginning, because everyone sort of has their own interpretation of creativity, right? So we want to know a bit about the post-release. So you recently released a video game, which we'll go into a bit shortly. But what does an indie developer do with themselves post-release? Is there a feeling of relief or sadness that it's over?
I think both of us were about to simultaneously say cry. um,
I was going to say patches
that too. Yeah, okay.
while crying.
While patches while crying. There's definitely a big jumble of feelings, and I think that's going to depend, sort of developer to developer, depending on how production was going itself. Because there's going to be, I think, as an indie developer, you are more like there's more things relying on you as an individual, which really tests it just tests you, and it really brings out your flaws in a lot of ways, because everything's so reliant on you. When you fail on something, it's really obvious, and it affects like everything right through the project. And that becomes a challenge, like it becomes an internal conflict. And because there's particular mistakes that you might be prone to, you kind of keep making them along the way, trying to get better. And then at the end of it, there's this thing of like, you've made, like, again, it also depends on how it releases too. Like, we were very like, both we worked hard, but we also recognized we were a little bit lucky with like how things were received and how well it went down, releasing at a good time. So yeah, it's like you're trying to celebrate the win of completing a project, which in itself is its own kind of skill set, just like literally finishing something. But along with that, there's like these battle scars of all of the flaws that have just been like, sort of laser beam sighted. um, and I think that was even more like pronounced where it was me and Tom. So it's like, okay, not only did I have to deal with my flaws, they were like very heavily exposed to, the person I was working with, and someone who's, very close to me, because we're, as you already mentioned, we're married. So yeah, the dynamic was really, really hard. And afterwards, there was a few pieces to pick up, despite having this big success. There was a lot of wins, but yeah.
I think with the release specifically, ours is maybe, well, I don't know. I think a lot of indie devs probably work right up until release. You do as much as you can, but we didn't really have a gap to step back and look at what we had done before the world gave their opinion. Like the last build for the game was an hour or so before it released. We were working right up to the line. So it was very strange for it to immediately be in people's hands. I think we had lost sight of the culmination of the whole project.
We said an
And
hour. Wait, so an hour
yeah,
finished
uploaded the
and
last
then
build like an hour before release.
wow,
Uh,
go.
Succeeded
That's
like
some Mission Impossible stuff.
6 character portraits on the last day. Like we were
Yeah, it was right up to the
we were
wire.
working right up to the end.
So we had like versions that, a version that had gone out to like
Reviewers
reviewers
a
like a
week
week
before
before, but we even like kind of locked them out of a certain like the last part of the game as we finished it up. And
until a couple of days before release. Then we did a patch for them
yeah, and then
because
it
we
was,
were still reworking bits of that.
and
And
then
then
even after
in the
that,
last 2 days, still more bug fixes and even new content, new character portraits and stuff coming in.
yeah, so it was right up to the wire. And I think, that was part of like us with being new to the whole situation, like being new to the industry, and not having done anything like this before. It was, yeah, we kind of lost track and sight of a lot of things. And when you're in the trenches like that, it's just so hard to see.
Yeah, we had the game had been playable all the way through for several months by that point, but it was us not being happy, and there I think that there was time, so we just tried to do what we could right up until the end.
But
And then some things afterwards in patches.
Yeah. So like I think emotionally it was tough at first, you know, and especially because we had like a staggered release. So we had release on PC and then we were going to release on console. So there's like this gap in between where we're kind of adapting things for console and the work wasn't as intense, but the work isn't finished. So you're both trying to kind of deal with the burnout, but also trying to celebrate what you've done, but also still keep working.
Yeah, we did a bunch of new features for console, for like time attack, new game plus, better gamepad controls.
And I think it's hard to really know where you're at emotionally at that point. Like where yeah, we're kind of sitting there sort of trying to understand how we feel, and then because we suddenly have the time to feel emotions because we kind of shut everything out like while we're working on the game, like we were just trying to, or at least on my side, you know, I don't want to speak for you, Tom, but for me I was like anytime I was feeling strongly about something, I just decided to like just lock it up, put it like throw it in the corner, and I was like I'll deal with that later and just like do the work. And then after the release, it's like, okay, now I've got this stuff to go through. And it's like, okay, what emotion is this? Oh, I'm happy. Oh, what emotion is this? Oh, man, I'm depressed. You know?
Been a lot of ups and downs, and I think for me it can change like hour to hour. Sometimes it's like, okay, we made something that people like, that's really cool, we did what we set out to do. And other times it's like, oh, I can see my pile of mistakes.
Mm.
Turbulent, maybe.
Yeah, turbulent. But it gets better. It gets better. We're in a much like better
Like
place
after
now.
a few months, yeah,
Yeah.
things have settled a bit.
Mm. So starting out your journey, can you tell us about your early life? Where did you both grow up, and what drew you to video games as players, then as developers?
Right. I'm from Bournemouth, so we're back in my hometown now. My parents were apprehensive about games, so we didn't really have anything growing up until I was maybe 10 or 11. And that was influenced by my aunt. She had a Game Boy with Tetris and Mario Land, and I was enamored with my first exposure to it. So I would ask and ask and ask and ask, and eventually we got a Game Boy with the Link's Awakening, one of the early Zelda games. That took me a long while to figure out how the game worked, but I persevered, and like 150 deaths later, I completed it. Um, then we had an N64, and that was, yeah, so a lot of Nintendo games. I say would shape my childhood and teenage years. In terms of making games, I think I was a bit dumb really at the start. I always thought that there was more, and if I could climb over this fence or get behind this thing, there would be more of the world that was out there and made, and it wasn't there. I think it was very specific with Half-Life 2. They had like developer commentary, and you could like fly around the map as well with some of the cheats and kind of see how the world was really, it only existed what needed to be there for the game to function. I think that captivated me with the illusion of how it's put together. And that's something I think about a lot when we're making our own projects now. In terms of making a game, I think that was accidental. That was the pandemic. We were inside a lot. I'd seen some tutorials for Unity and got a character moving around. And well, I might leave Steve to take
All
the
right.
next bit. Yeah,
Okay, so yeah, Tom made a character and it looked like terrifying, and I was like,
that was an expression of my
do
creativity.
not do this again. I was like, I will make your characters for you, and you know, I'll help you out in that regard. And you know, it was more the case of it was just kind of Tom made like a silly little thing, and the real answer was like, oh, if you know, I can do that. You know, I can learn. So I started learning, and we thought we'd like do some game jams and stuff together.
The first thing we started with, sorry, we're closed. We had the fixed cameras and walking around.
Yeah, and then
And
in
it was
between that, we saw some game jams and thought those looked like they'll be fun to participate in. They
like,
had like a good length to them, like they were like 2 weeks long or something. And we thought, okay, that's better than like trying to do something in a weekend. You know, we got full-time jobs and other commitments, so let's just tinker around with those over time. And
yeah,
it
the
was
game
really
jams
addicting.
were great to like
Learn
force
and
us to release something in a tiny window.
Yeah,
And we
and just like
learned stuff
learn,
we
yeah.
took back to Star Wars Clothes.
And it was exciting and exhilarating. Like I remember, the first game jam we were taking part of, which is like a mech jam, and we were working, and it was like it closed off at 7 a.m. and it was like 6 a.m. and we're uploading the game, and like the sun has risen, and I'm looking out the window downstairs in the kitchen, like, "Ah, yes, we did it. We made the game. We put it out. I'm gonna have something to like munch on, and then I'm going to sleep, and we'll see what people think about it in the morning."
So I guess we didn't really learn anything between that and releasing Sorry We're Closed. Finish it an hour before
Yeah.
the deadline.
I mean, for as far as my background, though, I grew up in New York. I was born and raised there until I was about 12, and then I was in a couple of other states on the East Coast of the U.S. in North Carolina and Pennsylvania. And for me, the idea of making games came quite early on. Like I was really. I mean, my mom played games, so they were always around. She was playing Tetris, she was playing strange, obscure games that nobody heard of, like Pipe Dream, and we played them with her, and we then grew up wanting the next systems, and she'd get them for us. It was sort of economical to buy, even though it was expensive. It was like, okay, she can get this one system that all the kids could use and entertain themselves with. So in her mind, it made sense, and she was always into tech. And so I think the first time I really felt like, oh, I would love to be able to work on something like this was seeing Final Fantasy VII when I was like, I think I must have been around 10 years old, maybe 9 years old, something. And I thought the world was so like intriguing. There was so much depth to like, there was like all of these characters. You go into a battle and like there's so much detail, and the world felt so like real in a way. Like not like it looked real, but it could be real. Like it just had that kind of attention to it that I could imagine, like, yeah, somewhere out there this could exist. And I just thought that was so cool. And I think after that point I saw like the character art in the little pamphlet, and I was like, oh, I'd love to be able to make characters like this. And maybe one day I can work on a game too. So that always stuck with me. So I think once Tom opened Unity, I was like, okay, this is my chance. I can piggyback my dream off of Tom's hard work.
Well, I mean, for both of us, really, like we wouldn't have the game without
Yeah.
everything you made for it. I just stuck it together with some tape.
No, you did more than that.
And how did the both of you meet?
Oh, through a video game.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we were playing. So the game's called Fantasy Star Online, and I have a bit more history with it because I played it when it came out. And like I think it literally came out the year 2000. And I try to describe this feeling to people like, at that time in my life and the way things were, the future seemed really bright. Like tech was exciting in ways that it was really creative. To go back to that topic, every company or anyone who was making anything tech related, like they were kind of doing stuff in their own vision with their own design ethos and their own purpose and their own goals. And I was so like obsessed with the future and sci-fi stuff. And this game comes out, and it's like a sci-fi themed game. And not only that, but it's like in this game you can create your own character, and you can change their height, you can make them like skinny, you can make them fat, you can you know and it was the first like kind of character creation game that I played where you can make a character with dark skin. So to me I was like, this is the future, and was absolutely obsessed. And I could play online because my mom was all about the internet, and that like she loved being connected to the world through the internet. So she was okay with us having internet with the game, and I played it online, was obsessed. Time goes by, it closes down, and I yearn for another game like it, and nothing ever compares until like one day in 2007, my 2005. No, it's well, I don't know. One day in the year 2000 and something.
I believe it was 12th of June 2005, but they had a preview access on the 10th of June.
Oh, I didn't
But
play
you
it
might
that
have
early.
came in
I
later.
came in
Yeah,
later.
I was
I came in
there. I
later.
was there day
But,
one.
yeah, but my brother said he was like, "Oh, Fantasy Star Online, you can play it again, and you can play it on PC." And I was like, "Oh my god!" So started playing it again, and inside there's this little character called Tom.
This would
Actually,
have been early 2006 we met on the game.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and
It was a small game. Like they had, when you logged in, you'd be put in a lobby. So
mm,
you'd be put with an assortment of people. And there were a few different lobbies you could go to, but it always felt like there was only a couple hundred people playing the game. So you'd run into the same people.
yeah, there was a real community.
Yeah.
So naturally, me and Tom, like, we would bump into each other all the time and just sort of started chatting and became good friends through that. And eventually, as time had gone on and we became such close friends, we like added each other on other messaging apps like MSN Messenger and stuff. And eventually, my mom, she like rolls into my room. She's in a wheelchair. She rolls into my room and she's like, "Christine, I got free calls to England. Call your friend. Let's see if it works." And I called Tom,
Oh.
and yeah, it was quite funny because I called him and like he was mute for basically all of the call.
I said hello.
And I said to Tom, I was like, you know what? Write out a list of questions for me, and then like I'll call you tomorrow, and then like you can ask me questions, and I'll answer them. And sure enough, I called him the next day, and he actually wrote out a list of questions, and that kind of got us chatting. So that's how we
Mm,
met. Mm-mm.
that's cute. We love a nice online video game meet cute.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's really funny because like when you meet someone in a game like that, you don't necessarily imagine you're gonna forge some sort of deep friendship because
Mm,
you meet a lot of people on there and like they come and go. So
yeah, definitely. So tell us a bit about your experience through like school, university. Did you study anything related to games?
no, we're both university lists.
we're
Like,
we're uneducated people.
yeah, yeah. And in school itself, like, there wasn't like where I was kind of living and growing up, there weren't like extensive programs like that. The art classes and stuff that I had were very, very, very standard art classes. And oftentimes I'd not spend any time making any art in them. So a lot of the teaching, especially my artistic side, was personal kind of what's the word I'm looking for when pursuing it like just in my own time. All of the stuff that we learned to make the game is very recent, like the 3D work, the Unity stuff, like all of that was again pursuing it personally, finding tutorials online, talking to people, and trying to learn how to make it work.
I think our backgrounds helped though, because you had studied 2D art and illustration for like 10 plus years by
Yeah, in
that
my own
point.
time, yeah.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
let you know how you wanted the 3D models to look.
Mm,
That helped the process. Like you didn't have to go through doing concepts and stuff. You could kind of see it and jump straight to doing the 3D model, and you could
mm.
make really cool textures for them.
Yeah, I relied a lot on my texture work to
And
sort of get us through.
then animation, you had studied like the motion and how people and animals move.
Mm, mm.
So you had to learn the tools to animate with, but you kind of had
Yeah, I had a
an
bit of
idea of,
what I wanted to do with it. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And then I had done web development after school, that kind of programming, I guess, background and combining, images and putting all the stuff together into a package to make something that people could use. And I think
Mm,
thinking about how people would navigate the site helped with thinking about how will people understand what they see on the screen in the game, what is interactable in the environment. So yeah, our backgrounds helped stepping into games.
yeah, yeah. And I think the main kind of thing really to take away is like if the resources don't seem like they're available, there may be other methods. Like it's unfortunate when, the kind of thing you want to do isn't like readily available at whatever school you're going to. But it doesn't mean that, you can't try and pursue it in your own time as a hobby and take time to learn and perhaps it kind of, it can grow
Oh,
into more.
We started when we were first married. We like both took part-time jobs, and then you pursued your art. I pursued my web dev stuff
Hmm.
like on the side,
Yeah.
and then eventually we were able to transition to doing those full time. Like we made careers doing that.
Yeah. And then we kind of did the same again with the game. Like we
By that time, we were both
full time.
employed full time doing art and doing web dev.
And thought, okay, let's try and pursue like a different hobby part time. And yeah, it was kind of by sort of chance and,
Free time afforded by the pandemic.
yeah, that it was able to become something more. Yeah, unfortunately, school didn't necessarily pave a whole lot the technical way to what I wanted to do, but obviously some of your parts, and I'm sure in some way school had some sort of contribution. I just don't know what. Taught me how to read and write. Actually, no, that's a lie. My mom taught me how to read and write, so
Um, so, see, you've mentioned your mum a bit, but Tom, we haven't really heard much about what your family think about what you do in games.
Oh, I think it's a little bit like
okay.
over their heads. Like they don't play games. They appreciate how it looks visually, but the artistic side, I think I think it's hard for them to understand the process we go through to make it, but they're proud of what we've done.
Oh,
They've been supportive and understanding,
yeah.
and we've had to spend like time locked up inside to finish the game. They've been very enthusiastic about, oh, I saw an article about it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
they're very supportive in that sense. Like, yeah, especially surprisingly your mom, who's would be the one who's probably the least interested in video games ever. But can I please
He's
tell
so
her description of our game to other friends? Because that's so funny.
Oh, oh, let me try and think of the words again. Tell me if I'm correct with my memory of it. She said she had gone to like see one of her friends and told them we were making adult games. Is that right?
Yes.
Like it sounded like not
Yeah,
like we had
like
started making very not safe for work
yeah.
content, like 18 plus explicit stuff, games for adults only.
And it only came about because we told her like the demographic, like we were trying to explain to her like, oh, it's a game, but it's not necessarily for like very young children. It's not a child's game. And in her mind that translated to you know
Maybe that's like from films though, like if
yeah.
it's an 18 plus film.
Yeah. So I just
And
thought that was absolutely hilarious that Tom's mother spent like 6 months telling everyone that we were creating adult games. And we quickly corrected her and just said, no, 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 no. It's got mature themes, but it's not.
But I think that's part of her background of not playing
Yeah,
games.
exactly.
Yeah.
She doesn't understand. She didn't understand the connotations of the way she put the words around.
Yeah.
Oh, see, you did mention that your mum is was always like into games and very happy to have you playing the internet when you was younger. What does she think about you making games and your family as well?
Oh man, they think it's so cool. Like, especially my brothers. Like, every time I was like showing them an update, they're like, "Oh my god, you're living the dream!" And just sort of. For one of my brothers, it started inspiring him to start working on like his own little projects again. Even though as briefly as it was, he's a very, very busy man. So I don't know how he even found the time to do that. But yeah, they thought it was just like so cool, and especially my mom. Even though my mom doesn't like playing survival horror type games, but my sister does. I think she started playing the game already. I'll have to see. But yeah, I think they were just both enamored, but also like, oh, of course you're making video games. Cause like I'm the one who like moved out of the country. I eloped to England and I had like my career doing art and stuff. So I think to them they see me very much as like I if I say I want to do something, I'll go and do it. So I think they weren't like surprised, but they were very happy. And I think especially my mom, because growing up as a single mother, she had like 5 kids. She's has cerebral palsy. She faced a lot of like pushback having kids and like even some members of the family saying like, oh, you're you're putting your children at risk of having like a hard upbringing, and you don't know how they'll turn out. And she always she never understood that sentiment, and she was like, I whatever. And always supported us, like, she was always very real with us. She was always telling us, like, she was never sugarcoating anything, but when we showed like a real interest in something, she would always be interested with us, and kind of, yeah, I don't know. So I think overall she's just so happy that we as her kids like all just literally went out and did exactly what we wanted to do. So I think she's like, she's over the moon really. And I got to call her, it was Mother's Day yesterday in America.
That sounds really lovely. And like, who knows how kids are going to turn out?
I know,
Just
yeah.
full stop.
It was just that thing, it was during her time, ableism
Mm.
was like just one of those things where, someone saw someone with a disability, but also with children, they felt like, oh, you're going to be a burden to your own kids. And my mom was
Mm.
like, shut up.
Good on her.
Yeah.
Very weird sentiment, though, isn't it? Um, so, what is the best advice that someone else has given you when starting on your journey? And was it something that you followed?
Oh gosh. Oh, okay. Oh, because there's so much advice. Like when you're in the indie scene, you're constantly asking your friends like what do they think, or you're like kind of expressing your problems, and everyone's always got like something valuable to say. I think
Go outside and see people.
Did you follow that?
On and off. I feel we could have followed it more, and I
Mm,
think I understand more what they mean now,
mm.
having had like 6 months and prior to the PC release where we didn't really do that at all. And I don't know how much would have changed the game. Like if we had gone out and had a little break, would have probably worked better when we came back. So I don't think we would have necessarily lost anything, but it definitely felt like we got to a stage where we had to spend every waking minute working on it to get it to where we wanted it to be.
Yeah, we got
But
lost in the sauce and in a bad way.
yeah,
One that was like very like direct about the game that I think kind of propelled us into how to think about the game dynamically would be from Tala, who worked on Judero with his like co-partner Jack King Spooner. And when we first showed him Sorry We're Closed, there's like that dual world mechanic, and he goes to use it, and it used to just basically be you press the button and the whole world changed. And he like just flat out said like, what's the point in this? This is boring. It's like busy work. And it felt like a little bit harsh, not like in a bad way, but like it was really direct. And it was like one of the first things where he like really just pointed out how we should be thinking about our game design. And I think from that point forward, like, it kind of turned something on in my head that like made me think like, okay, it's not just about how cool something looks, because something can look cool the first time and then be really boring after that.
it became like a check, didn't it? It's like
Yeah,
press A
to
to
check.
see
Yeah,
if there are things,
yeah, yeah.
but it made us
Did you get
really think
defensive when he said it?
about.
I don't think we got like defensive. I think it was more like,
Oh, we
oh,
didn't make something that's working yet.
yeah, yeah. It made us feel like, I think it was more like, oh, you're right. Like
We
kind of
got
like,
some work to do here.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
So it's like the process of finding the fun for that,
yeah.
which became limiting the range, giving it a radius around the player. So
Mm,
it's not the whole world at once. Gave it a physicality, like it could bump things, it could,
yeah.
some things couldn't be revealed.
And I think it was just like the case of, just because something didn't work in the moment doesn't mean you just cut it. Like, find a way to adapt it. And then the other, it's, again, these advices were like, they're not like life-changing advice, but at the time, it's what let us go forward. So the other one was at the end of development, which was from a friend, Raymond. And they are a narrative designer. They've been around in the industry, both like, sort of small and large, and a really good friend. And they were my mentor for one like a year. for like, or sorry, 6 months during a program. And at the end of the thing, I was like, oh my God, I can't write the endings of this game. Like, I'm running around in circles. So I asked Raymond, like, how do you finish, how do you write the end of story? How do you write the end of the game? And they were like, well, when the game's ended, it's finished. So you don't have to write a bunch of stuff afterwards. Like, you just give them the end. Like, you don't have to waffle on about anything. Like, just deliver what the ending is. And
That helped us rearrange a lot of the story points. 'Cause, like we knew like the 4 places Michelle could end up, the main character in the game.
yeah, and it
So we
was
took a bunch of what happened and kind of made
how,
almost an extended and the last level and scenes became the ending and
yeah,
changed for each of those pods rather than okay, we've got to the very end. Now we have
yeah,
like 5 minutes of dialogue to click through.
yeah. So it was just like that kind of advice was more what I needed rather than like, sage advice. And I think
Mm.
that's what's also really great about other people's advice at times too. Like, if you're asking someone who really knows what you need, they give you the advice you need, not like some cool soundbite that.
Go outside.
But
Sorry.
no, that is true. That is true. We had to go outside. That's what we had to hear, you know?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
literally had to hear that. And, it was that thing of we should have listened a little harder as well,
Yeah.
but I think it
Yeah.
helped.
Hmm. So making Sorry We're Closed. What is Sorry We're Closed? Give us the pitch.
Okay. I've done this so many times and I think I've erased it out of my brain to like to make it easier. So Sorry We're Closed is like an unorthodox survival horror. It's different in the way that there's a lot more story than you normally find in a survival horror title, but it's got some elements from how survival horror plays. We limit the player's abilities a little bit so that they're more constrained. It has like those third person camera angles, so like show like kind of give that atmospheric feeling. But the difference with our game is you shoot in first person in a fixed position, so it kind of changes to arcade style shooting. And overall, it is a yeah, it's a love story wrapped up in a horror game about a young woman, Michelle, who gets cursed by this demon who is trying to force people to fall in love with them. Yeah. Do you have anything to add to that, Tom?
I think that's pretty much what it is. Maybe the style of it is very bright and vibrant on the character and enemy design side. So that we have the maybe more traditional survival horror backdrops, but with a very bright and vibrant cast.
Mm.
Um, that explores themes of love and romance and what they mean to people. Yeah, you can make choices along the way to help or hinder those around you in the world.
Yeah, multiple endings.
Yeah.
Multiple endings, yeah.
Cool. Um, see, being from originally from the US, how do you think things would have been different if you had made a game there versus here?
Oh, well, I don't think it would have like the kind of kick it does. And I'm trying to think of how to keep this answer succinct without getting so deep into politics. um, I think it would have. I mean, it would have had some of like my initial attitude and flair, but I think having moved out into another country really expanded how I was able to see the world and the people in it, and maybe have like a greater sense of empathy and a greater sense of understanding that you know the vast majority of people, when they're making decisions, even bad ones, there is some sort of reason behind it. And I think that's what helped me kind of write the sort of characters that were in the game. Go ahead, Tom.
I think there are some things that are unique to the UK for the games industry,
Hmm.
like on like the mentorship program you're in, Limit Break is a
Hmm.
UK-based thing.
Yeah.
There are UK games industry feels very small. We see familiar faces at the different events. We can go to an event an hour, a couple of hours away easily. The smallness of the
Oh, yeah, of
UK
course.
has meant that in our journey we've met loads of developers and had a lot of support from people.
Well, I think overall too, it's not just that, but it's just like the literal opportunities and the possibility of that, I think it would have been harder in a lot of ways to make what we've made and for it to work out the way that it did. Like Sorry We're Closed is a very niche game, both like kind of in its themes, the sort of characters and that it has and the way that it plays. And it's a hard game to describe in a few words. So it's been great to be able to like very easily go around and meet sort of people who are interested in hearing what we have to say about it. I think in the States it would have been very easy to be stuck. Like I was in Pennsylvania before I moved out here, and there's not a lot of resources to make this kind of stuff. Traveling to places to meet other people would have been expensive. So I think for someone that would have been in the position that I was in, I was, I grew up very poor and I didn't have a car. I couldn't afford a car. There's not trains and buses like that go everywhere. So I think I could have very easily been stuck.
You're paying back now. You're a mentor now. You're
Yeah.
kind of paying it
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah.
Develop you can go to for free in Brighton,
Yeah.
and there's a set of paid talks, there's a full set of free talks though.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Mm.
that's how I met, Nigel and the all of the cool campaigning that, you both do yourselves. And it was through that.
Yeah, that was a
Mm.
round table. I
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
oh no, it wasn't even my round table. It was I wandered into someone else's round table.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And we were just happened to be kind of like sitting near each other. And you were talking about companies should make the effort of reaching out to people who have the expertise on connecting, people who are struggling, finding their place in an industry. And that really resonated with me because that's like kind of the background that I have. And
Yeah, yeah.
um
I forgot. I didn't know. I'm glad you said that. I didn't know what I was talking about.
It was a long day, and it was the very last thing they were doing that evening, and it was like
Yeah,
everyone you could see the tiredness on everyone's face. But yeah, I think the UK, not to sound too patriotic, the Union Jacks flowing behind me.
yeah. You have to. You have to.
I think, having moved out here, there's just so many opportunities and like support networks that had helped me kind of do what I want to do. And I really hope that, some of these things can stay strong and that more support networks get created because it'd be a shame to see if any of these things go.
Mhm. Yeah, it's interesting to hear how that might have varied and the different impacts of sort of the opportunities that you've had here. Could you walk us through a bit of your typical development day during the project?
Oh, depends on if you're asking at the start of the project or the end of
That's
the project. You do a normal day at the beginning. You can do that one.
oh gosh. Well, we work from home, so it is very all around the same place. It's get up, have breakfast, sit in front of the computer, chat at lunchtime, go back to the computer,
Have dinner.
have dinner, try and work out what we're doing, if we're doing the right things. The conversation never really stopped because of the proximity for us working on the game together, living in the house together. Our lives became about the game. It was always talking and talking and talking and working things out. I think problem solving was done away from the computers, really, just conversation, listening to each other's
Usually on the
ideas.
like in the stairwell, like on the landing, we would be standing because our offices um that we have two little rooms, which I guess are offices. They're quite tiny, but we
We have
walk.
two cupboards.
Yeah, we have two cupboards we work in, and then like we would walk out into the hallway of this like by the stairs, and then get stuck talking there for about 3 hours about what we should do, and then like turn around and walk back into the room. Oh, but there was a time at the start of the game we had Troy, who was a dog that we had first fostered then adopted. We used to, we would walk him and
Yeah,
play with him and stuff. It was unfortunate though, he was quite old, so it was unfortunate that like early on in development he did pass away. But we did used to go outside a little bit because we would have to walk him in the morning, or I'd walk him in the morning, and then we would walk him together in the evening, and you would like play around with him in the day during like in the middle of the day in the garden and
yeah.
blowing his little peanut butter flavored bubbles.
He liked his bubbles.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a bit of a mess, I guess. Like maybe it felt messy. Like it's not like we worked on what we needed to at the time. we had like kind of goals at the end of each month that we would meander a little bit and kind of refocus on different things.
Well, I don't know if it was meandering. It was more something would happen and that we weren't expecting. Like,
Oh,
oh, something needed doing or something didn't work like how we imagined it would.
I guess when we got to the point where we needed to be,
Yeah.
but it wasn't always a straight line.
No, no,
That's what I
that's
mean by
right. Yeah,
meander.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Um,
towards the end of development, that really was, get up, work, a meal, work, go to sleep, and do that for a little while.
Just
And
trying to get through those emails. Like
um,
a couple months out from release, we sorry if anyone emailed us. We didn't get.
yeah,
We,
it,
yeah,
it was just there was so little time.
yeah.
There was so little time, or it felt like it. Maybe there was more time, but I think because of how we like maybe panicked a little bit, maybe we didn't manage the time in the best way and overworked ourselves so that it was taking us longer to do things. But at the same time, it's so hard to tell when you're like I said in the trenches. So yeah, I think we're hoping with like the next project that the routine is, get up, maybe enjoy a little hour of breakfast before getting to work, or maybe having a walk, then having lunch and having a walk, and then doing work, and then having a walk, just going.
Maybe taking care of ourselves a bit more next time.
The walking is so like it's simple but effective, especially when it's sunny and where you are as well. That helps, or at least for me, from personal experience, by the sea. But just walking and just being away from that routine, it's like you can forget it, but it's quite effective.
Yeah, it's that thing of it's very easy to forget that you need to take care of the vessel that your soul is contained in.
So many things just after the game. We'll do that after the game. After the game.
Well, after a while, it was you were like even your beard, you weren't shaving it. You're like, I'll shave it after the game, so it just kept growing. um, I had this thing because I had my mentee from last year, and her partner came to visit, and it's that thing you tell people advice that you should follow, but you don't. And I
Yep,
was telling them like,
that's what this podcast is for.
yeah, I told them, I was like, your body has taken you everywhere you've ever been, and you're sort of indebted to take care of it. Like it literally brings you where you need to be. So you ought to take care of it. You've only got one, don't waste it.
Mm.
And on that note,
Yeah, okay then. So there is a lot of risk in game development. What are some of the challenges that people don't consider?
I think even though I said before we meandered, we had planned out, the time everything should take. And I think in isolation that would have worked pretty well, but we didn't really account for events and promoting the game and things like actually you should probably take an hour out to do like admin stuff each day so it doesn't build up. So putting in time when you're planning towards the things that feel like they're in the periphery, but they should actually be important and part of your regular routine so you don't have several hundred emails of potential missed opportunities by the end of the project.
And yeah, I mean, I think I'd answer exactly the same. Like, there were just things on the side that we had not considered as part of the process, just due to lack of like experience. And one of the big ones was like getting a demo ready, having time to do any sort of interviews, having time to prepare like trailers and stuff, like
And
all of
maybe
that.
just the impact of an event. Like if an event is 2 days, you're still going up there and coming back. When you come back, you might feel completely wiped out.
And have to
Like
recover.
maybe it is good to plan to have a day or two off when you come back from an event
Mm.
rather than thinking like, oh, I'm coming back, midday on Monday. So that's, pretty much a full week of work I can do. I'll just work a couple of evenings and that's a full week.
Yeah. Yeah. Or thinking, oh, I come back midday, so I'll work on Monday evening. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
that.
Just work a long day. Yeah. It catches up with you.
Yeah, can definitely relate to that.
Mm.
So the concept of finding the fun in video game development. What is the fun in your game, and what stage did you find it?
I think the answer might be slightly different for both of us in some ways. Because for me, being so interested in the visual aspect of things and like in my head, because I'm such a visually driven person, whenever we're talking about the game, I would play it in my head, and that would kind of be part of the game design process. Like we would talk about something, and then Tom would be like, "Well, what if we did this?" And I'd be like, "Okay, hold on, let me play it in my head," and then like say what I think it would feel like. And it meant that like the part that started feeling really good to me was when everything was finally coming together at the end. Like the cutscenes are in, the characters are in, the animations look right, the sounds are there. So it was fun for people to play before that. Like we've had people play testing it, but for me, that was when it was like in like gripping for some people. Like, all of those
Okay.
things were there.
That's interesting because I always trusted that would come because I knew you were doing the characters and the cutscenes and things. So I trusted that part would come together.
Hmm.
But it was how do I keep people entertained through the combat parts before they get their story bit again? And it was, well, it's a mix of trying to vary how we use the mechanics. We don't have dozens and dozens of different mechanics in the game, but we try and find different uses. There's a rhythm to the game where you go from the town to a combat level to the town to the combat level. So you're in and out of story versus like the survival horror aspect. And each time we went back to the survival horror, I wanted to try and find new ways, like different puzzles, different enemies, just slightly changing how it was played, and even throughout those combat levels, like you learn the new trick, and then you kind of expand on that throughout it. But it's trying to keep the gameplay fresh and enticing so people don't get bored, so it doesn't overstay its welcome, so that they can get their next narrative bit of juice to propel them through to want to get the next bit.
And I mean, there were definitely some parts where when we solved like a gameplay issue, like at the start, we knew we wanted to kind of have like people using items in the game. Initially, it used to just be you pick up an item, and if you go to the place where you had to use it, you just interact and it kind of goes through the motions. And that, you know,
You're given like the choice, like you'd pick up a key, you'd interact with the lock, and it would say, "Do you want to
to
use
use
your
the key.
key?"
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't have to put two and two together. Oh, can I use this item in
Yeah.
this location?
And then we thought, okay, that's not fun. Like it didn't feel great. So we implemented this thing of actually having to go into your inventory and pick out the item you wanted to use. When we first implemented it and have people play it, they kind of forgot that they had this inventory, and they would like talk to the character or whatever and be like, well, why can I, I need to use this item. And they were like, oh, they're telling us that something didn't feel right, and they're giving us like solutions, but none of them are the right solution. Like I can kind of already tell like these aren't
Well,
going to work.
that's the point.
Yeah.
People communicate that they're finding a frustration,
Yeah.
so we have to try and find a way to solve it.
And we kind of came up with our own solution, which is okay, what we'll do is we'll just remind people that they have an inventory. There'll be a prompt that, and it'll say talk, and then it will say inventory. And
If
that
it's
just,
somewhere where you
yeah,
can
but
use an item,
yeah.
yeah.
And that just like cleared it up completely. Like we never had that raised as an issue again. And that part is like really satisfying when you find that solution that just lubricates the feeling of the game, where the player is both able to just interact and make their own way through navigating something, but also not just like holding like their hand through something and just being
Yeah.
like, you've got the item, you've used it now,
It meant
hooray.
we could subtly remind, like after you've interacted, it would change from saying examine to examine/inventory,
Yeah.
which
And
gives a little reminder like, oh, do I have something? If I don't have something, there'll be something to find to use
yeah.
here.
And yeah, that I think is part of that finding the fun.
Yeah,
Like,
it's observing how people play. We have an idea, put it in the game, get people to play it.
and keep
We
tweaking it.
can see the mistakes that we've made
Yeah.
and then tweak it. And hopefully, when we playtest again, people are having more of the experience that we intended.
Okay, cool. So you have taken the game to events nationally and abroad. How did you find the experience, and what's been some surprising bit of feedback that you've got from players?
They liked it.
Yeah, they liked it.
Especially the first time.
Oh gosh. So we were very nervous the first time because it was going to be the first time anyone from the public would be able to play the game. So, you
That
know,
was it. WSD or WASP in London.
Yeah. And that experience was good. For me, I had already done conventions for comics, so I was kind of used to like kind of talking to people, pulling them in and saying like, "Hey, I've got this cool game. You look like you would like this game. Sit down, play it. I got a free chair. Why not?" For Tom, it was like a new experience because it was something he's worked on and you had to sell something you had made yourself. You've sold my comics before for me. This is
Oh,
different.
we had like your poster ups that helped a lot. Like people would be looking at the
Yeah.
artwork and stuff. But it was, I guess, it's like similar to the playtests, like we could see people playing it.
Oh yeah,
And
we
then,
were furiously taking notes, like mental notes when we were watching people and like kind of
yeah,
discussing amongst ourselves what we needed to.
biting our tongues for not like telling people how to do it.
No, this is how you play it. You're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so hard to not just like grab the controller from
Yeah,
them. Be like,
let
look.
me show you.
So we only learn by watching people play without an isolation, because that's what happened when people buy the game later on. Like we're not going to be
Yeah.
behind everyone to help them.
When we
Um,
showed it abroad at like we went to Day of the Devs,
and a maze.
and Amaze, they were quite different experiences. Because Day of the Devs was more, I
It's
guess,
like students and press.
it was like students and press, so it was more media focused, and we were kind of like jet lagged a little bit, like we were still kind of like,
It's a bit like shell shocked to be there. Like,
yeah,
why are we at Day of the Devs?
yeah. And then also, like, we both had very mixed feelings about like LA as a place itself, and again, not to get too much into politics or anything, but they have a huge homelessness problem out there.
Mm.
And it was like in the middle of like all of the layoffs happening in the industry, and like the Game Awards was happening. So there was so much juxtaposition between us kind of trying to, live our dream of making a video game, but that seeming like such a huge privilege when
In
you're,
like a sea of suffering in an
yeah,
area.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like that in itself was a hard experience. Yeah, a sea of suffering, I think, is how you could describe the sort of streets of LA in a weird way.
It felt very unfair to be invited there for this really cool thing. And
And
then
there's just like literally
the
people.
population there is suffering so much.
Yeah, so that was shocking. And then Amaze was the like complete opposite experience of that. So Amaze took place in Berlin, and that was like, there was more developers there. It was like dev focused and lots of people showing really, really niche games and really cool stuff. Like there was a game where you're standing on a skateboard and you have to like avoid obstacles by like tilting. It was so cool.
I mean, the games at Day of the Devs were cool, but it's more
Yeah.
like games we see on like the stores, like
Yeah, just unique.
cool indie games with cool ideas.
Yeah, just and like, it was like kind of everything I would dream an event being. And I think because there was just so many like devs from just all around Europe that had descended upon this place. There was just it was like, just talking about the creative process, talking about like why people were doing the things they were doing, the stories they were wanting to tell. I got to meet some really cool people from, different countries and them trying to express what they're doing and why they're doing it. Some of it was extremely politically driven, to the point where they were like, I can't go back home because of this. And for some of them, it was just very much like, I want to spend time being myself. I've worked in like a corporate job forever. So the experience at Amaze was, it lived
Like
up to the title.
a meeting of minds for
Yeah.
developers. Yeah.
Yeah. And that one felt more relaxed, even though we're still showing the game, we're like just talking to, it almost felt like friends and peers and stuff.
Yeah,
So
that was really cool. And people came like from around the world to Amaze,
mm, mm,
whereas Day of the Devs is more like, okay, this is the like the US media circuit
yeah,
and students from the local area.
yeah, and there would have been developers who were showcasing their games from different parts of the
Yeah.
world. But yeah, it was just like a different vibe. And again, I think it was just just mainly made difficult because of LA itself. But yeah, so it's like all of it was like kind of a learning experience and like getting better at chatting to people and finding ways to again express yourself. Yeah. yeah, so that was kind of the general feeling.
So, what's been your biggest achievement in bringing the game to life?
I think just finishing it, really. Like, it's so hard. You know, when people say, like, finishing a game is hard, like, they're very real about it, and, you know, some people have described it as like, "Oh, the last 10% of the game is the last 90% of the game," but I think it's just more you are so in like, so deep into it, it feels like anything could make it fall apart at any second.
What would I say the achievement would be? I guess personally, it's unlocking like the knowledge of making a game. I think starting a different project, we have so much more we're aware of now about both the creation of a game and the process of launching a game. It feels like we could do like anything we wanted to now within reason. Like we're not going to make GTA 7 with two of us,
Yeah, we're
but
making
that's
GTA 7, you heard it
yeah,
here first.
yeah. But as what we wanted to do when we first made a game, when we set out to make a game, it feels like we have the knowledge to tackle lots of the different ideas we had then that we had no clue how we might create something like that. And I guess in the process of making the game, the collaborations have been really cool, especially with Okamura and Catherine
And,
and Devix on the music side of the game. It's been really fulfilling to see their work and having the opportunity to collaborate with people like that, I think was
mm,
Yeah. So I want to go a little bit into like the reception of the game and the industry. It's quite vulnerable to create something and put it into the world. So how have you felt about the general reception that it's received?
um, I don't want to say like, oh, surprise, because like, you know, obviously we worked really hard on the game and had hoped that people would like it. But yeah, there is an element of surprise. I didn't think this many people would be playing it or like, you know, it would do as well as it did, like what it's done.
yeah, it seems to have found its audience. We were, I think, very prepared to have like mixed reviews on Steam and not very many reviews on Steam. So it is a surprise. It's not what we thought would be the reception to the game. We're very pleased with the reception, but it is really, if you told us like even like the day of release that oh it'll have like 1,000 reviews in a couple of months, that didn't seem possible. Like I thought we hoped we might get double digits. Hopefully we get 10 reviews.
Yeah. I think we were kind of expecting a little bit more as well to have like, you know, kind of a wave of like haters given the content and the character
Mm.
design and stuff.
Also the way it came together, like it wasn't in the state we thought it would be for release, which
Yeah.
is why we were still working on it. We
Yeah.
didn't really know what the sum of the game's parts was at the end.
Yeah. I think, yeah, we have a sense of relief, a sense of surprise. We are, you know, there's definitely a bit of like kind of pride thrown in the mix too, but
Yeah, that's really nice reading people's praise about the game,
yeah,
or like if it's had an effect on them or an impact.
yeah, yeah,
It makes it feel worthwhile
yeah,
putting the time in
yeah,
that people enjoy it. Like my biggest worry was like people are paying like money they've worked for. It's like people have worked and paid for this, and I don't want them to feel like it was a waste of time and money experiencing it. I don't want them to be sad and feel it was a waste.
yeah. And it seems like for most people it wasn't. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Is there like anything that you haven't agreed with?
Oh, do you mean like from like people's perception or with each other?
Yeah, from people's reception.
Oh, I mean, there are some things that I would probably say like were maybe not great interpretations of what we tried to do, but at the same time, it's like,
It's not for everyone, is it?
yeah, it's like also kind of acknowledging it's not really for everyone. It's not, and you know, it's that thing of like, you know, people's opinions are always going to be like that. Like people can feel whichever way they want about it at the end of the day.
I think the strangest thing is when someone like prescribes motivations to us that weren't there, like they're
Mm.
trying to put themselves in our
Like your
shoes.
agenda, I guess.
Yeah, and like
That's the
say
that's the
why we
phrase.
made the decisions we made. And when that is inaccurate, it's kind of like, okay. In terms of like criticism on frustrations with the game, I think everything I've read has been pretty valid. It's not a perfect game, but
Mm.
it's the
The
game.
one that kind of confused us a little bit, I must admit, are the pickles. There's like in the game, there's like a jar of pickles you can find, and so you can find two food items. One's a multi sandwich, one's a jar of pickles, and there's like a hungry ghost who's like, "Oh, I'm so hungry. I want something old, really old, and gross." So you can like give them the moldy sandwich, and when you try to give them the pickles, the ghost is like, I don't know if I want to eat this, and you can choose like, yeah, you do. I mean, it's not exactly those words.
You like have to double
You
confirm.
have to double confirm, which is unusual for like the rest of the game. And people regularly give this jar of pickles to this ghost who's not asked for them.
In fairness, there isn't somewhere obvious else to use it yet.
But surely you think, well, I guess I could just I'll use. There's still the rest of the game. And I guess the funnier thing to me is like for that we have similarly at the start of the game. There's like dirty dishes that you need to put in the sink, and Michelle says I should go put these in the sink. In that instance, people are like, I should keep these, because I might need them in the rest of the game. So they want to keep the dirty dishes.
We
but
don't
then
let them though.
I know.
We taught them they have to use it in the location.
Oh, it's not.
It's
Oh,
our
it's a
fault.
game design.
It's our fault.
Game
It's our
design.
fault.
Oh, it's our fault.
Luckily, there are multiple endings. So next time, keep the
Yeah,
pickle.
the next time, keep the pickle. But that one's funny. I don't. It's not the thing of like I think people are wrong feeling that way at all. It's just
It's the strength of reaction to finding out they could have used it for something else is not something we were intended. We didn't want to hurt people with the
oh
pickles.
yeah, we've
But
had people describe it as a betrayal.
the
Oh
betrayal.
wow.
The
The betrayal.
So that one makes me chuckle a little bit. Yeah.
I'm glad the pickle is like a, bonding exercise for our damaged fan base. Damaged by the pickle, by
Yeah,
our
100%.
creation. Yeah,
Yeah.
we damaged them with the pickle. But I hope it's a memorable part of the game. After a few years, the pain might subside.
Yeah. So what lessons from this project will you carry forward into your next game? And what even determines whether you go on to make another game?
Okay, so I'm gonna answer real quickly. I'm never making a game with two worlds again.
With Hopkins. There was like a cheat there.
I'm never making a two-world game again. Oh, that was so frustrating. And I think everything takes longer than I think it will. I need to account for mistakes as much as I'd like to think that I'm able to do everything the first time around. Yeah, more time, even more time. It always takes more time.
So before we get into our guest tip, I want to ask one last question. We're all protagonists in our own stories, and every good protagonist has a goal and a vision of what success is. So what does success look like to you, and are you there yet?
I think when we were making the game, we thought success would be being able to make another game. Like throughout most development, we thought this is probably going to be our only opportunity or might be our only opportunity. We have to put everything that we possibly can into this in the hopes that we would be able to make another game afterwards. So I think in that way, okay, it was a success. I think going forward, success would be being able to complete a project while taking better care
Yeah,
of
maintaining a
ourselves.
healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, so we don't need like to recuperate for 6 months next time.
Mm.
I don't want to see Christine go through the stresses again. So if we can be kinder to ourselves with the next project and still release something, that would be the success.
Yeah, for me, the success is all like I try to keep it simple, and I've recently been trying to explain to Tom like I just want to have a roof over my head, clothes on the back, full belly, and I've got that. So, and I've been able to do that while doing the thing I wanted to do. So I do feel very successful. Like even if for whatever reason we don't get on to making the next game or another game, I feel like I got to do the one that I wanted to. So I'm happy. I'm happy in that way.
In each interview, we ask our guests to give advice for aspiring creative professionals, and we've been talking games this episode. So, what advice do you have for our listeners who may want to get started with creating their own games and putting a game out there into the world?
I think it's really valuable to just release something. Like I know Cyber Close is our first like commercial game. It's the first thing we started. When we started, it wasn't planned to be a long game or like a $25 game. Thought it might be free or like a couple of dollars and we'd release it on itch. We kind of did that along the way when we pivoted into the game jams. And I would say it's really valuable just to try and release something to the world. If you've to spend some time learning, then maybe spend a week or two and just release something. If it's part of a jam, that's great because you get like a little community and you can all like play each other's games, help each other throughout development, encourage each other, and then see what everyone makes. But don't agonize too much about the first thing you release being your magnum opus. You don't have to make the next, I don't know,
GTA 7.
with the first thing you do. It's more important to make mistakes and learn. And yeah.
I think my advice would be, try to stay as authentic to yourself as possible, because I do really feel that people can tell when something's, disingenuous, or when someone is being as genuine as they can be, especially in this sort of indie scene. It Yeah, I just feel like it has a better payoff, and it comes back to that thing of like trying to make a connection, that creativity, trying to communicate with others. If you're not being honest with what you're trying to communicate, I think you're going to lose that connection with people, and ultimately that's what's going to make the game struggle even more. And my other bit of advice is, do not be afraid to market your game. Like, don't be afraid to tell people about your game. Don't be afraid to talk about it multiple times on social media and post about it like every other day, because that's what you're doing, that's what's going on in your life right now. And people do genuinely find that stuff interesting. Like, they do like seeing that. So don't think nobody wants to see what you're making. Don't think nobody's interested. It's not that people aren't interested, it's more that they don't know it exists, and it's kind of like your job to help them know that it exists, and make
Mm.
them realize that it's out, that it's there.
And that could be a really hard one for creators because there's that imposter syndrome aspect to it. And then you think, especially with something like social media or just promotion, you think people will be tired of hearing of it, but then don't really realize they haven't heard about it. You've seen
Yeah,
every message. They've maybe seen one or two, and that was like one on a bus and doing something else.
exactly. Like, yeah, they're not living and breathing the project, and especially with how social media and stuff is, they're probably following loads of people. They might not have seen the other tweet or posts that you did before. And even if they did see one, that's not the entirety of like your project. That's not like everything you have to say about it. So that part might not have been like, an immediate interest to them, but something else about it might, show them how they can connect to it. So I don't know. I just hope that more people can kind of get the courage and the confidence to show off what they're doing.
That's a really good tip. Maybe I should take note.
Mm.
It always feels like it does feel like you're always talking about it, but somehow no one ever knows.
Yeah.
But we are going to go into a bonus round.
This is the part where we throw in follow-up questions or random things that don't quite fit in anywhere else. I kind of had, as you were talking about like feedback and things, so this isn't actually a question, I'll get to questions, but just to reiterate that thing you were saying about taking feedback and people pointing out things that were wrong, and it just reminded me of this saying, I can't remember who originally said it, but I heard it from an author, Ryan Holiday, who mentioned when people tell you, I'm paraphrasing, I'm probably going to butcher this, I need to actually have it, but when people are pointing out a failing, they're always right, but when they tell you how to fix it, they're always wrong.
Yeah.
And it's that idea of they kind of, like something's not right. Like you guys are the ones with the expertise to fix it, and like, it might be something turning out wrong here, but it's actually some bit of code in this other part that's causing that. So, or the story, or whatever it might be. So I think that's important to remember when like doing the feedback.
Yeah, yeah. That became very true because it's the thing of when someone's feeling something wrong in the moment, they don't have the whole project in their head. Like they don't necessarily know how it's going to impact the entirety of the game. But when you're working on something as the creator, anytime anything is suggested or anytime you think of any sort of solution, you're kind of doing a checklist and comparing it to everything else that you're like putting into the game or everything else that the player has to do and thinking, does this fit? Does this work? So yeah, they just don't have the perspective to be able
Mm.
to give the solution. But certainly sometimes there's like a good hint or something in these I don't want to call them unsolicited solutions, but like their own ideas. But
Sometimes they're unsolicited. I guess that's
yeah,
what
yeah,
social media is for, right?
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's great to hear from people, and if it's not working for them, it's good for us to know.
yeah.
And I think it's very natural for people to offer their idea of how it could be fixed.
Yeah, because like their idea kind of gives a little hint into what is actually the problem.
Yeah, we need to try and understand what the root of it is,
Yeah,
Like
and
decipher.
yeah, try and make people not have that um,
negative
negative
feeling.
feeling when they're in that part of the game, and then
Mm.
there won't be a need for.
Mm.
Yeah, no, I feel that. And an actual question just struck me as you were talking, because you mentioned how the downtime in the pandemic sort of gave you the space for this. Would it be right to say like if it weren't for the pandemic, you wouldn't have made this game? Or was this
I
always going to be a plan?
I think yeah, I think that is kind of the truth behind it. Like I think Tom always wanted to tinker with stuff in Unity.
I was curious. Yeah,
Yeah,
Mm,
but the pandemic, like the lockdown specifically really propelled the free time.
mm,
And that gave us the opportunity to sort of really dabble in our hobbies like with more intent. And I it was kind of just like, right place, right time sort of thing.
mm,
I wouldn't say it would never happen. It was certainly a catalyst
Yeah.
for it at the time, and kind of propelled by other things though, because like you've been commissioned by
Oh yeah,
the
Paradise
Paradise
Killer.
Killer dev team to do a few portraits
Yeah, and
for the
they
game.
they gave me a copy of the game, and after playing it, I like saw that the vast majority of the work was done by like two people at the time. There's a third
mm,
person now, but yeah, so that was like, oh, maybe we could make a game like the two of
Yeah,
us.
and we've been seeing more indie stuff like on the eShop or on Steam, and seeing some people like posting online about it. So we kind of had, I guess, an idea that
It was
the
possible,
technology was ready. Like there were all these free tools and
right.
tutorials and communities making things on their own.
but then like having lockdown made
It
like
was like,
just yeah, it
okay,
just propelled it. It just like
we're like,
kind of
why don't we have a go?
yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's always funny how that, well, I mean, there's so many stories of like media and content being created or careers being diverted into different directions because of that time. And it's interesting to hear like that was also in like the case for you guys, in that it gave that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you think about it too, it was definitely a time where I think there was a lot of sort of self-reflection for a lot of people, like
Mm, yeah.
how, yeah, like what am I doing with the time that I have? And, you know, life feeling quite precious, seeing, so many people kind of having their lives sort of ripped apart and away from them. I think in some ways, subconsciously it can kind of shake you a little bit in the are you doing what you want to do?
Mm.
Because time is finite. So I think yeah, there's like so many different levels that,
Mm,
the
that was less philosophical.
I always feel very mortal. I'm like laying up at night thinking about this stuff.
As existential episodes.
Yeah.
Last one from me then is that idea again. Another thing that's come up as you're talking is that idea of like taking care of yourself and achieving things in a sort of better position of well-being. And I totally get that, because it's almost like I don't know, especially when it's the first time doing something, or there's, you mentioned, see, at the beginning about like if it's failure, it's sort of it's on you. So there's almost this idea that you have to be in a certain state to get something done, and oftentimes that state isn't one of well-being. So it's a hard thing to kind of keep that in mind. But when it does come to well-being, obviously we mentioned going outside, that's one tick. What else do you do to like wind down or take care of yourself? Do you like really do, I mean, I know it's the irony of like making games doesn't give you time to play games, but games, films, TV, like what do you guys do to detach a little bit?
We've recently been watching Race Around the World, which is encouraging some travel plans, I think.
Yeah, I think at the moment there was something that I had like kind of briefly read and it sort of stuck with me, which was like the best way to deal with burnout is actually socializing, even though
Mm.
you really don't feel like doing
Oh.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so I was like, you know what? I'll try and encourage it like at every moment we can. So we have been seeing friends a lot and, trying to make time for them during the week. And I do think that's helped out a lot. I think that's really stabilized us a lot. Just literally spending time with people and just talking and going out and doing things and just talking like kind of nonsense and not really having to have these deep conversations about how, work is going and stuff. And so doing that, watching a bit of TV, of course. Not too much though. I don't think we really watched loads of TV.
Like, might watch an episode a day.
Yeah. And
Mm.
I've been studying my Japanese again, which I'm at the awkward intermediate stage where I'm better than like learning the basics of what a particle is, but not good enough to be able to completely say and describe what it is that I want to do if it's more than one action at a time. So
Right.
I'm trying to get over that hump, but I do really enjoy like studying languages and stuff. So that's what I'm doing now.
Oh, I've been painting some models. Got my little Warhammer itch back.
Yeah, yeah, that's one
Mm.
that's been with you since childhood. You've been into that for a long time, and it's now that we're adults, we can actually spend money on the things we want to do.
Yeah, so I like preparing the models. I spend a lot of time like cleaning off all the mold lines and the plastic injection molding. If I spent as much time painting, I would have lots of finished models. It
It's
seems,
quite therapeutic though for you, I think. It's like that you get into like a Zen mode. I see you here. That's like you have like a little workshop and you're
yeah,
like making
I'm
these
covered
little
in little
guys.
plastic or resin flakes after sitting there for a couple of hours.
I've got the
Um,
mental image. Yeah.
Yeah. Simple things. Simple things. I'd like to get back into archery, but I gotta go write the club again and
Oh wow.
and go back with my like tail between my legs and be like, sorry, I abandoned you guys.
We had a game to make. We had to do the thing. That's really good to hear. That's like a variety of things. So yeah, hopefully like you do go on to make something and something else, and then you integrate that as well, because that's a good lesson to learn. Trying to learn it myself, but it takes a while apparently. But yeah, that's it. Well, actually, very last thing is, where can people find you online if you want to follow your journey and see what else you're up to?
So we're mainly posting on Blue Sky at the moment. So that's Alamode Games. So at Alamode Games dot Blue Sky. That's
Mm.
social. I think that's what the thing is.
yeah,
Um,
the
Yes.
handle's Alamo Games.
yeah,
We'll pop up in the search.
yeah, just
Yeah.
search for Alamode Games and we'll be there. And that's really kind of the only social media platform we're using currently, just because I'm sort of like trying to migrate from Twitter. And we are on Twitter, but we're like, we're doing updates, like major updates here and there.
We
But
do our contractually obliged post.
yeah, but most
Of
stuff's on
course.
Blue Sky. I'm trying to think if there's
There are some TikToks if you want to see some things that
oh yeah, our friend
our
our
friend Ara made. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
if
Um
you like the characters, there are some.
and that's the same handle again, Alamode Games. And I mean, honestly, I think that's it for now.
They can find us on the Steam store.
Oh yeah, you can find our game on the Steam store.
Of course.
That was like mentioned at the start as well. It's on all the
We'll add
it's
the
on.
link, yeah. We'll add the links to that so people can check it out. But yeah, see, Tom, thank you very much for like sharing your journey and giving us that insight to what it is actually like to make a indie game.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us and
Yeah.
letting us babble. I understand it's a bit longer with two people answering, so thanks for having us both on. And
Yeah, we squeeze it in there. Yeah, thank you. And yeah, thank you to listeners. Hope you got something from that insight. If you enjoyed this episode of Story X Story, definitely make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss a future episode. And we do interviews and deep dives. Also, give us a 5-star rating and review because that helps us reach new listeners and fans of story discussions. Thank you to those who have done that already. We're story creators ourselves. You can discover our manga universe online. Titles are available there, including the latest Origins Against All Odds. And join the Studio 77 Discord as well to connect with us in between episodes, get the heads up on projects and live streams that we're doing, as well as meeting others. You can also take part in the Do I Look Like a Gamer video game representation campaign. This is our yearly initiative. We've got a lot of plans to come still, but check out the photos of the 40 players and makers. You can see that on social media, on the campaign website as well, looklikeagamer.com, and upcoming events too. As for the podcast, we release new episodes on Thursdays, and those include creator interviews, video game discussions, and deep dives into stories across pop culture. You can always give us a shout directly. Our email address is studio77@myamada.com, and our website with links to subscribe is myamada.com/storyxstory. So thank you for tuning in, and until next time, stay safe. And remember, if you have suffered as a result of a pickle-related trauma and your name is not Morty, we can't help you, but we do know a couple people who can. Take care, everyone.